Welcome to the Washington Civil and Disability Advocates ADA Accessible Bathrooms presentation. The general outline is going to cover the 2010 ADA standards, starting with overall compliance, general components, and then into the specifics of single-user and multi-user bathrooms. The ADA standards do not address the number of toilet rooms or fixtures required for a facility, but instead specify which ones must be accessible where provided. Where they're clustered together, at least half must comply, or in the case of portable units, at least 5% at each cluster. In addition, compliant toilet rooms and portable units must be labeled by the International Symbol of Accessibility unless all are accessible. Accessible unisex toilet rooms cannot serve as a substitute for access to multi-user rooms, except where alterations to do so would not be technically feasible. Where both types of restrooms are provided, they both must comply. ADA standards require that unisex toilet rooms where provided have privacy latches and contain at most one lavatory, one water closet, and one urinal. Compliance in an alteration is not required where it is technically infeasible, which is defined as something that has little likelihood of being accomplished because existing structural conditions would require removing or altering a load-bearing member that is an essential part of the structural frame, or because other existing physical or site constraints prohibit modification or addition of those elements. When existing toilet rooms are altered, the standards apply according to the plan's scope of work. If one toilet room on a floor is altered, the standards apply to that room only. Similarly, if all the toilet rooms on the floor are altered, the standards apply to each toilet room that would be required to comply in the new construction. For the elements, if some but not all are altered, only those altered elements must comply, unless the entire room or space has been redone. There are exceptions for qualified historic facilities, such as those determined by the appropriate state historic preservation official or advisory council on historic preservation. Next, we move on to the general components common among single and multi-user bathrooms. Criteria for water closets address location, clearance, seats, grab bars, flush controls, and dispensers. Water closets can be arranged for either a left-hand or right-hand approach. The required clearance provides space for approach and transfer to water closets. Elements and fixtures cannot overlap the required water closet clearance, with some exceptions such as grab bars, toilet paper dispensers, etc. Grab bars are required to be mounted on the walls beside and behind the water closet. They can be separate or continuous. The length of the grab bar is measured based on whether it returns to the wall or is attached to other points along the bar. Here we have the specifications for the rear grab bar and the side grab bar. The rear grab bar can be shifted to the open side of the water closet or split where it would conflict with the location of a flush controls required by applicable codes. Grab bars can have circular or non-circular cross sections but must have rounded edges. There's a requirement for clearance between the grab bar and the wall to prevent entrapment, and any projecting object must be located at least 12 inches above the grab bars and at least 1.5 from the bottom. There's a structural strength requirement of at least 250 pounds at any point along the bar. Toilet paper dispensers must be within accessible reach from the water closet. It's also important that non-recessed dispensers be outside the 12-inch minimum clearance above the bar. Dispensers must allow continuous paper flow and cannot control delivery. Here are the specifications for recessed and non-recessed dispenser locations. Dispensers and receptacles such as hand-operated soap dispensers that are fixed, paper towel dispensers, toilet seat cover dispensers, and other types must comply as operable parts. Operable parts must be usable with one hand and without tight grasping, pinching, or twisting of the wrist or more than 5 pounds of force. Operable parts must have compliant clear floor space for forward or side approach, and they must also be located within accessible reach range. Next, we're going to go into the reach ranges from a forward and side reach, as well as a quick look at children's reach ranges. An unobstructed forward reach shall be from 15 inches to 48 inches above the ground. Where a high forward reach is over an obstruction, the clear floor space shall extend beneath the element for a distance not less than the required reach depth over the obstruction. The high forward reach shall range depending on the reach depth below it. Here we have the diagram showing that the maximum height is dependent on the depth of the obstruction. For an unobstructed side reach, the range shall be from 15 to 48 inches. An obstruction shall be permitted between the clear floor or ground space and the element where the depth of the obstruction is 10 inches maximum. For an obstructed high reach, the range is between 24 to 34 inches. In similar fashion, the depth of the obstruction changes the maximum height of the reach. While this presentation is looking at the ADA guidelines for adults, I did want to point out that there are guidelines for the various age ranges for children. Where baby changing tables are provided, they must comply as a work surface and a protruding object. It requires a clear forward approach and be compliant as an operable part. Baby changing tables cannot overlap fixture clearances or door maneuvering clearances when stowed. However, the clear space for a forward approach can overlap those clearances. Lavatories and sinks require clear floor space positioned for a forward approach, and knee and toe clearances shall be provided at a maximum of 34 inches from the ground. Controls for faucets shall comply as operable parts and only require a maximum of 5 pounds of force to use. And finally, hand-operated metering faucets need to remain open for 10 seconds at least. Mirrors shall be installed with the bottom edge of the reflecting surface 40 or 35 inches from the ground, depending on whether or not the mirror is located above a lavatory countertop or not. If shelves are provided, at least one of each type must be located 40 inches to 48 inches above the floor, and if coat hooks are provided, at least one must be within accessible reach range. At least one urinal must comply where 2 or more urinals are provided in a toilet room. Specifications address rim height, depth, flush controls, and a clear floor space. Accessible urinals must be either the wall-hung or stall type. Here are additional requirements for urinals, including a clear floor space for a forward approach, and that partitions or privacy panels cannot obstruct or reduce the minimum clearance. Where provided, signs that identify permanent rooms and spaces, including toilet rooms, must have raised characters in Braille and meet criteria for visual access. The signs must be at least 6 inches high, and if not all the toilet rooms are accessible, those that comply must be labeled by the International Symbol of Accessibility. Now we move on to single-user toilet rooms. The standards do not directly specify the size of toilet rooms, which are determined by a variety of factors. How various space requirements are met also determine the minimum room size, including the required clearances at fixtures and other elements, turning space, and door maneuvering clearance. Accessible toilet rooms can be configured in many different ways. The layout shown here is used only as an example in illustrating the features of a compliant toilet room. Water closets can be placed in any corner. The lavatory cannot overlap the water closet clearance, but the clearance at the lavatory can. It is advisable, but is not required, to nominally center the lavatory on the clear floor space. If a lavatory or other fixture is recessed next to a water closet, the rear grab bar can be 24 inches if the wall space does not allow a grab bar of the full 36. Recessed fixtures can save space where 2 rooms are paired. For doors, maneuvering clearance is required at doors based on the approach and the swing. No elements can overlap the door maneuvering clearance. Here we have examples of push side maneuvering clearance and pull side maneuvering clearance. Doors can swing into fixture clearances in a single-user toilet rooms where unobstructed wheelchair space is available beyond the door swing. This provides space to enter the room and clear the door using wheeled mobility aids. Turning space is required in the room and can be provided either as a diameter circle or T-shaped space. Doors can swing into the turning space, and the orientation of that T-shaped space is not specified. Elements with knee and toe clearances can overlap a portion of the turning space, and with a T-shaped space, the overlap is limited to one segment of the T, such that the other two remain clear for approach and backing up. With a water closet and lavatory side by side, the plumbing wall is typically determined by the width of the water closet clearance, the lavatory fixture width, plus any additional lavatory clearance beyond that fixture, unless of course the lavatory is recessed. Here we have two examples of possible layouts demonstrating the interaction between the door swing and the required clearances. Alternatively, if the door swings out, the room depth is usually determined by the door maneuvering clearance and the horizontal depth of the lavatory. For portable toilet units, access is required to at least 5% in each cluster. The compliant units must be labeled by the International Symbol of Accessibility, and those units must meet all requirements for toilet rooms. An accessible route and entrance are required to serve portable units. Ramps necessary for changes in level must fully comply, and entrance landings must be sized to accommodate door maneuvering clearances and ramp landings. Compliance with all other applicable provisions for water closets, including those for grab bars and clearances, are required. Now we're moving on to multi-user toilet rooms. Here's a diagram showing all of the components of the room at large, requiring at least one wheelchair-accessible toilet compartment, at least one compliant urinal, at least one compliant lavatory, and so on. Doors, including the toilet compartment doors, cannot swing into the clear floor space required at plumbing fixtures, but they can swing into the turning space. At least one toilet compartment must be wheelchair accessible where toilet compartments are provided. Compartment doors must be offset from the water closet in either the front or the side partition so that there is space to enter the compartment. Doors can be hinged on the left or right side of the opening. Compartment doors must meet applicable requirements for doors, including the clear width, 32 minimum, hardware, and opening force of 5 pounds maximum. Compartment doors must meet maneuvering clearance requirements. Doors can be hinged on either side. Here we have examples of a latch, forward, and hinge approach. The required size of compartments provides the minimum space needed to enter, approach, and transfer to water closets, and then exit. With water closets generally, the only elements that can overlap the minimum compartment water closet clearance area are the water closet, grab bars, dispensers, coat hooks, shelves, and sanitary napkin disposal units. Other elements and fixtures, such as the baby changing tables and a stowed position, cannot overlap this clearance. If there is toe clearance below partitions, the compartment dimensions can be smaller. Wheelchair-accessible toilet compartments located at the end of the row can provide more room by incorporating dead-end aisle space. The door can swing in if it clears the minimum compartment area. The compartment door can be located in the side partition that is closer to the water closet when the door opening is beyond the minimum depth of the compartment area. No other fixture besides the toilet can be located in the minimum space required for the compartment. If a lavatory or another plumbing fixture is located in a compartment, the compartment must meet requirements for toilet rooms, including turning space, and additionally, another compliant lavatory is required outside the compartment. In closing, designing accessible bathrooms clearly requires a lot of care and forethought. An accessible design should focus on maneuverability and adjusting amenities for users from a seated position. Thank you for your time watching this summary of the ADA Accessible Bathroom Guidelines from the Washington Civil and Disability Advocate.